Join us for a heartwarming tale of Helena Martinez, a woman seeking peace who finds unexpected love with Gabriel Tavares while tending to chickens on his family farm. Their journey challenges class divides and family expectations, showing that true connections can blossom in the most unlikely places. Before we begin this story, comment below where you are watching from. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty path as Helena Martinez pulled her small suitcase toward the farmhouse. At 26, her face already showed the weariness of someone who had fought too many battles. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her worn jeans and faded t-shirt told the story of a woman who had given up trying to impress anyone. "This must be it," she muttered to herself, stopping to look at the modest workers' quarters behind the main house. The contrast was striking. The main farmhouse stood majestic and well-maintained, while her new home was little more than a basic room with a small porch. Helena didn't mind. After years of cramped apartments with roommates who stole her food and landlords who raised the rent every 6 months, this looked like paradise. Simple, quiet paradise. Mrs. Gomez, the housekeeper who had hired her over the phone, appeared at the door of the main house. She was a plump woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. "You must be Helena," she called out, walking briskly toward her. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't show up." "The bus was late," Helena explained, extending her hand. "Thank you for this opportunity." Mrs. Gomes looked her up and down with a critical eye. "Have you ever worked with chickens before?" Helena shook her head. "No, but I learn quickly, and I'm not afraid of hard work." "Good, because there's plenty of it. Come, I'll show you where you'll sleep, then we'll go to the chicken coop. The owner wants fresh eggs collected every morning by 7. "The owner? Will I meet them?" Helena asked, following the older woman to the small building behind the main house. Mrs. Gomez let out a short laugh. "Mr. Gabriel? Not likely. He comes. And goes. Mostly goes. The Tavares family owns half the agricultural land in this state, but the young master prefers to manage from a distance." There was something in her tone. Not quite disapproval, but perhaps puzzlement. Helena's new home was simple but clean. A single room with a bed, a small table with 2 chairs, a tiny kitchenette, and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around. And for Helena, who had shared bathrooms with 3 other women in her last apartment, it felt luxurious. "You can settle in later," Mrs. Gomes said. "Right now, I need to show you your duties." The chicken coop was larger than Helena had imagined, with several sections and dozens of hens clucking and pecking at the ground. The earthy smell was strong, but not unpleasant. "Feed them in the morning and evening. Clean the nests once a week. Collect eggs daily. Keep predators away." "That's the job," Mrs. Gomes explained, demonstrating how to scatter the feed. "Any questions?" Helena shook her head, already feeling a strange sense of peace watching the chickens go about their simple lives. "No questions. I can handle this." "Mrs. Gomes handed her a pair of gloves. "These are for cleaning. Don't get too attached to the birds. They're farm animals, not pets." But as the older woman walked away, Helena knelt down and watched a white hen that seemed to be bumping into things. "What's wrong with that one?" she called out. Mrs. Gomez turned back. "That's Branquinha. She's going blind. Probably should have been dinner months ago, but..." She shrugged. "The owner has a soft spot for damaged things." Later that night, alone in her small room, Helena unpacked her few belongings. University textbooks she couldn't bring herself to sell, even after dropping out. Photos of her mother, who had died 2 years ago, after a lifetime of working her fingers to the bone as a seamstress. A small music box, the only gift her father had ever given her before disappearing from her life. Helena sat on the edge of her bed and looked out the window at the star-filled sky. "I'm done chasing dreams, Mom," she whispered. "No more trying to prove I belong in their world. No more student loans I can't pay back. No more jobs where they look at me like I'm dirt. This is enough. This is peace." She slept better that night than she had in years. The days fell into a rhythm. Helena woke before sunrise, made herself coffee and headed to the chicken coop. She learned each hen's personality, which ones were bossy, which were shy, which laid the biggest eggs. She spoke to them softly as she worked, telling them stories, singing songs her mother used to sing when sewing late into the night, Branquinha. The blind white hen became her favorite. Unlike the others who sometimes pecked at Helena's hands, Branquinia was gentle, responding to Helena's voice with soft clucks. "You just need someone to see you," Helena told the hen one morning, gently, placing her in a patch of sunlight. Even if you can't see yourself. 3 weeks into her new job, Helena was sitting cross-legged in the chicken coop, laughing as Branquinia pecked delicately at corn kernels from her palm. The morning sun filtered through the wooden slats, casting golden stripes across the dirt floor. For the first time in years, Helena felt content. "I never saw anyone treat a chicken like it was a treasure." The deep voice startled her so badly that she scattered corn everywhere, sending the chickens into a fluttering frenzy. Helena scrambled to her feet, brushing dirt from her jeans as she faced the man standing at the entrance to the coop. He was tall, with dark hair that curled slightly at the ends and eyes the color of rich coffee. His clothes were simple, jeans, boots, and a button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows, but Helena could tell from the quality that they weren't cheap. He leaned against the doorframe with casual ease, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Mr. Tavares," she said, recognizing him from a photo Mrs. Gomez had shown her. "I'm sorry, I was just—" "No need to apologize," he interrupted, his voice gentler now. "And please, call me Gabriel. Mr. Tavares is my father." He nodded toward Branquinia, who was still pecking at the scattered corn. "Mrs. Gomez told me about the blind hen. I'm glad someone's looking after her." Helena relaxed slightly but kept her distance. "Everything that lives and feels is a treasure to those who know how to see." Something flickered in Gabriel's eyes, surprise perhaps, or curiosity. He stepped further into the coop, and Helena noticed he moved with the confidence of someone who had never had to question his place in the world. "That's a beautiful way to look at it," he said, crouching down to observe Branquinia. "Most people around here see the chickens as nothing more than egg layers or Sunday dinner." "I'm not most people," Helena replied, then immediately regretted her sharp tone. "I mean, no, I can see that." Gabriel smiled, and the warmth of it transformed his face. "Mrs. Gomez says egg production is up since you started. Whatever you're doing, it's working." Helena nodded, unsure what to say. This man owned the land. She stood on the roof over her head, the job that fed her. Yet he was here in a chicken coop at 7 in the morning, talking to her as if her opinions mattered. "I should get back to work," she said finally. "The eggs need to be collected and cleaned." Gabriel stood up. "Of course, don't let me keep you." He turned to leave but paused. "You know, I grew up on this farm, but I've been away too long. Maybe you could show me around sometime, help me see it through fresh eyes." Before Helena could respond, he was gone, leaving her with a strange flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the startled chickens. Over the next few days, Helena found herself watching for Gabriel. Despite Mrs. Gomez's claim that he was rarely around, he seemed to appear everywhere, checking the fences near the chicken coop, inspecting the vegetable garden, just as Helena was gathering herbs for her dinner, walking across the yard as she hung her laundry to dry. Each time he found a reason to stop and talk, not about business or farm matters, but personal things. He asked about her childhood, her favorite books, whether she preferred sunrise or sunset. Helena answered cautiously at first, then with growing ease as she realized he genuinely wanted to know. One evening, as Helena sat on her small porch watching the sky turn pink and gold, Gabriel appeared with 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might like some company," he said, offering her a cup. "Unless you prefer to be alone?" Helena hesitated, then gestured to the empty chair beside her. Company would be nice. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping their coffee and watching the sunset. Finally, Gabriel spoke. "Why chickens?" he asked. "Mrs. Gomes said you took the job without even asking about the pay." Helena considered her answer carefully. "I needed peace," she said finally. "After years in the city, trying to be something I'm not, drowning in expectations, I just needed something simple, something real." Gabriel nodded as if he understood perfectly. "And what were you trying to be?" "Someone worthy of respect." The words came out before Helena could stop them. "I was the scholarship kid at a university full of rich students, the girl with patched clothes whose mother sewed wedding dresses she could never afford. I thought education would be the great equalizer, but..." She shrugged. Some doors stay closed no matter how hard you knock. And what about dreams? Gabriel asked quietly. Did you leave those in the city too? Helena looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. Despite his casual clothes and easy manner, there was no hiding the privilege in his posture, the confidence that came from never having to wonder if you belonged. Dreams are a luxury, she said finally. I prefer realities I can count on, like sunrise, fresh eggs, blind chickens that need me. Gabriel's face softened. Not all dreams are out of reach, Helena. She stood up, suddenly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Thank you for the coffee, Mr. Tavares. Gabriel, he corrected gently. Gabriel, she conceded. But I should get some rest. Morning comes early in the chicken business. He stood too, taking her empty cup. Of course, good night, Helena. As she watched him walk back to the main house, Helena pressed her hand against her chest, trying to calm the unfamiliar ache there. It was dangerous, this feeling. He was her boss, from a different world. Men like him didn't end up with women, who tended chickens for a living, no matter how gently they asked about your dreams. The next morning, Helena found a book on her porch, a guide to raising healthy chickens. Inside was a note in bold masculine handwriting, for Branquinha's guardian, G. Helena smiled despite herself. Perhaps morning had brought more than just chicken feed and fresh eggs. That afternoon, Mrs. Gomez appeared at the chicken coop, her face tight with disapproval. The young master's family is coming tomorrow, she announced. His mother, father, and brother. They rarely visit, so everything must be perfect. Helena nodded. I'll make sure the area around the coop is extra clean. It's not just that. Mrs. Gomes lowered her voice. They don't know he's been spending time here at the farm. They think he's been in the city handling business matters. And they certainly don't know he's been, she paused, choosing her words carefully, making friends with the help. The words stung, but Helena kept her face neutral. I understand. Do you? Mrs. Gomez stepped closer. The Tavares family has expectations. Gabriel is supposed to marry Sofia Montero, the daughter of their biggest business partner. There's been talk of an engagement announcement for months. Helena felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. I didn't know, she said quietly. But it doesn't matter, we're just friendly acquaintances. Mrs. Gomes's expression softened slightly. You're a good worker, Helena. I'd hate to see you hurt or lose your position because of misunderstandings. After the housekeeper left, Helena sat with Branquinha in her lap, gently stroking the white feathers. See? This is why we don't dream, old girl. Reality is much simpler. But as she worked through the afternoon, Helena couldn't shake the hollow feeling in her chest. She told herself it was better to know now, before feelings grew too deep, before she started believing in impossible things, like a wealthy farm owner falling for a chicken keeper, like happiness that lasted, like love that crossed the lines of class and circumstance. As the sun began to set, Helena spotted a cloud of dust on the distant road, expensive cars approaching fast. The Tavares family had arrived, and with them the real world that Helena had been hiding from among her beloved chickens. The Tavares family arrived like a storm, elegant, powerful, and leaving destruction in their wake. Helena watched from the hay, shadows as 3 luxury cars pulled up to the main house. From the first emerged an older couple, Gabriel's parents, she assumed. The woman wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Helena would make in a year. The man walked with the confidence of someone used to controlling rooms full of people. From the second car stepped a younger man who resembled Gabriel, but with sharper features and none of his warmth. This must be the brother. He checked his expensive watch impatiently as the driver unloaded their luggage. Helena quickly turned away and returned to her small quarters. It was better to stay invisible during this visit. Mrs. Gomes's warning echoed in her mind. The Tavares family has expectations. The next morning, Helena was up before dawn as usual. As she approached the chicken coop, she noticed with surprise that the lights were already on. Pushing the door open cautiously, she found Gabriel inside, scattering feed. Good morning, he said with a smile. I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd help. Helena stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Your family arrived last night. They did. His smile faded. And dinner was exactly as I expected. 3 hours of them questioning every business decision I've made, followed by not-so-subtle hints about Sofia Montero and what a perfect match she would be. She sounds impressive, Helena said carefully, taking the feedback from him and continuing his task. Gabriel leaned against the wall, watching her work. Sofia is the daughter of my father's oldest friend and business partner. She has 3 university degrees, speaks 4 languages, and knows exactly which fork to use at fancy dinners. He sighed. She's also cold, calculating, and interested only in what the Tavares name can do for her social standing. And what does your family think about you being here? Helena asked, not looking at him as she spread feed for the chickens. They think I'm wasting my potential. Gabriel's voice hardened. My father built an empire from nothing. My brother, Antonio, expanded it, and I'm expected to take it to the next level. More land, more profits, more power. Isn't that what you want? Helena finally looked up at E. Gabriel met her gaze. What I want is to use what we have responsibly. Sustainable farming practices. Fair wages for workers. Quality over quantity. His hands clenched into fists. But that's not ambitious enough for the Tavares name. Branquinha approached, bumping gently against Helena's leg. She picked up the blind hen, cradling her carefully. And what do you think about their plans for you and Sofia? The question was barely a whisper. Before Gabriel could answer, the door swung open. A tall, elegant woman in her 50s stood there, her eyes widening at the sight of her son in a chicken coop at dawn. Gabriel, what on earth are you doing here? Victoria Tavares looked from her son to Helena, her gaze lingering on the blind chicken in Helena's arms. And who is this? Gabriel straightened. Mother, this is Helena Martinez. She takes care of the chickens. Helena, this is my mother, Victoria Tavares. Helena nodded respectfully, wishing she weren't wearing her oldest work clothes covered in dust and chicken feed. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Tavares. Victoria barely acknowledged the greeting. Gabriel, your father wants to discuss the Rodriguez contract before breakfast. He's waiting in the study. Her tone made it clear this was not a request. Tell him I'll be there in 20 minutes, Gabriel replied, his voice suddenly formal. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. He's waiting now. 20 minutes, Mother. Something unspoken passed between mother and son. Years of similar confrontations, Helena guessed. Finally, Victoria turned to leave but paused at the door. Miss Martinez, isn't it? Mrs. Gomes speaks highly of your work. The property has never looked better. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Though I'm surprised my son finds chicken farming so fascinating. After she left, Gabriel exhaled slowly. I apologize for my mother. Helena placed Branquinha back on the ground. She's exactly what I expected. And what's that? Someone who's never had to wonder if she belongs somewhere. Helena began collecting eggs, placing them carefully in her basket. You should go. Your father is waiting. Gabriel touched her arm lightly. Have dinner with me tonight, in town, away from all this. Helena drew back. That's not a good idea. Why not? Because I work for you. Because your family would never approve. Because somewhere in this county, there's a perfect educated woman named Sofia who speaks 4 languages and knows which fork to use. Helena shook her head. I barely finished high school. My mother was a seamstress. I talked to chickens. Gabriel stepped closer. You're the first real thing I've found in years. When I'm with you, I'm not a Tavares heir. I'm just me. The sincerity in his eyes made Helena's resolve waver, but before she could respond, they heard voices approaching, male voices discussing crop yields and projected profits. You need to go, Helena urged. Please. Gabriel hesitated, then nodded. We'll finish this conversation later. Helena watched him leave, greeting his father and brother outside with handshakes and forced smiles. As they walked toward the main house, the older man's voice carried back to her. The Monteros are joining us for dinner tonight. Sofia has been asking about you. With a heavy heart, Helena returned to her work, telling herself that the ache in her chest would pass. It had to. The day dragged on endlessly. Helena threw herself into her tasks, scrubbing the chicken coop until it was spotless, weeding the herb garden, and even helping Mrs. Gomes prepare for the evening's dinner party. Anything to keep her mind occupied. Late that afternoon, as Helena was hanging laundry behind her quarters, Gabriel's brother appeared. Up close, Antonio Tavares was even more intimidating, taller than Gabriel, with cold eyes that assessed her as if calculating her value. "Miss Martinez," he said smoothly, "I hope I'm not interrupting." Helena continued pinning clothes to the line. "Can I help you with something, Mr. Tavares?" "I was curious about the woman who's caught my brother's attention." He leaned against the wall watching her work. "Gabriel has always had unconventional tastes. Your brother is kind to all his employees," Helena replied neutrally. Antonio laughed. "My brother spends his mornings in a chicken coop when he should be in board meetings. That's not kindness, that's rebellion." Helena said nothing, focusing on her task. "Let me be direct, Miss Martinez." Antonio's voice hardened. "The Tavares Group is negotiating the largest contract in our company's history with the Montero family. A contract that will be sealed by my brother's marriage to Sofia Montero." Helena finally looked at him. "That has nothing to do with me." "Doesn't it?" Antonio stepped closer. "Gabriel has been distancing himself from the family business for months. But since returning to this farm, since meeting you, he's become even more resistant to his responsibilities." "I've never encouraged—" "You don't need to encourage," Antonio interrupted. "Your very existence is a distraction." The humble chicken, keeper with the sad eyes and poetic soul. His smile was cold. "How much?" Helena blinked. "Excuse me?" "How much would it take for you to leave? Name your price. Enough to finish that university degree you abandoned? A small house somewhere far from here? Whatever it is, the Tavares family can afford it." The blood drained from Helena's face. "You're offering me money to disappear?" "I'm offering you an opportunity," Antonio corrected. "Take it, and you'll never have to worry about money again. Refuse and—" He shrugged. "Well, farm workers come and go, don't they? Especially those without proper employment contracts." Helena's hands trembled as she pinned the last shirt to the line. "I think you should leave." Antonio reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, placing it on her small patio table. "Think about it, Miss Martinez. For everyone's sake." After he left, Helena sat on her porch steps, wrapping her arms around herself as if cold despite the warm afternoon. She'd known this would happen, had tried to protect her heart from exactly this reality check. She didn't belong in Gabriel's world, and his family would ensure she never would. That evening, Helena watched from a distance as expensive cars arrived at the main house. Women in evening gowns and men in suits emerged, greeted warmly by the Tavares family. Through the large windows, she could see a woman with perfect blonde hair laughing at something Gabriel said. Sophia, she presumed. Helena turned away, unable to watch anymore. She returned to her small room and began packing her few belongings. Antonio's threat had worked, though not for the reasons he thought. She wouldn't take his money, but she couldn't stay and be the reason for a family rift either. If Gabriel truly cared for her, pursuing a relationship would only hurt his future. And if he was simply rebelling against his family's expectations, well, she deserved more than being someone's act of defiance. A knock at her door startled her. Mrs. Gomes stood there looking troubled. "You have a visitor," the housekeeper said, stepping aside to reveal Gabriel. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his hair neatly combed, looking every inch the wealthy heir, except for the tension in his jaw and the storm in his eyes. "May I come in?" he asked quietly. Helena nodded, suddenly conscious of how small and shabby her room must look to him. Gabriel entered, glancing at the half-packed suitcase on her bed. "You're leaving?" It wasn't a question. Helena nodded again, unable to find words. "Because of what my brother said to you this afternoon." Helena's head snapped up. "You know about that?" "Mrs. Gomes overheard and told me." Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, messing up its perfect arrangement. "I'm so sorry, Helena. Antonio had no right." "He's protecting your family's interests," Helena said softly. "And he's right. I am a distraction from what you should be doing." "No," Gabriel's voice was firm. He's protecting what he thinks our family should be. There's a difference. He stepped closer. The dinner party is still going on. Sophia is there, wearing a dress that costs more than most cars, talking about her latest charity gala. My parents are beaming at her as if she's the answer to every prayer. She sounds perfect for you, Helena said, hating the words even as she spoke them. Perfect for the Tavares heir, maybe. Gabriel's eyes softened. But all I could think about through 3 courses of pretentious food was you, sitting here alone, believing you don't fit into my world. Helena gestured helplessly at her simple room. Look around, Gabriel, I don't. Then maybe it's not a world worth being part of. He took her hands in his. I excused myself from dinner to clear my head. Ended up at the chicken coop instead. Despite everything, Helena smiled. How's Branquinha? Sleeping contentedly, and I realized something, standing there watching those simple creatures. Gabriel squeezed her hands gently. They're happy with the basics: food, shelter, safety. It's humans who complicate everything with status and expectations. It's not that simple, Helena protested. Your family will have to accept my choices or not. That's their decision. Gabriel's gaze was steady. But I've made mine. I'm not going back to that dinner. I'm not proposing to Sophia. And I'm certainly not letting you leave because my brother threatened you. Helena felt tears building. What are you saying? I'm saying stay. Not for me, but because you've built something meaningful here. With the farm. With those ridiculous chickens that adore you. His smile was tender. And if while you're staying you decide I'm worth getting to know better, I'll be here too. Before Helena could respond, the door burst open. Antonio stood there, his face dark with anger. Behind him, Helena could see Victoria Tavares and a distinguished-looking man who must be Gabriel's father. So this is where you ran off to, Antonio spat. Leaving the Monteros insulted and the contract in jeopardy because you couldn't stay away from your chicken girl. Gabriel released Helena's hands, but didn't move away from her. Don't call her that. The older man stepped forward. Gabriel, your behavior tonight is unacceptable. The Monteros are our most important business partners. I know exactly who they are, Father. Gabriel's voice was calm but firm. And I know what you want from me, but I'm not a business asset to be leveraged for a contract. Victoria stepped into the small room, looking around with barely concealed distaste. This has gone far enough. Whatever infatuation you're experiencing, it ends now. You have responsibilities, Gabriel. Yes, I do, Gabriel agreed. To the land, to the people who work it, to myself, and to the family name, his father added sternly. Gabriel shook his head. The family name means nothing if we sacrifice everything meaningful for it. Antonio turned his cold gaze to Helena. This is your doing. He was ready to step up before you filled his head with romantic nonsense about simple living. Helena found her voice at last. I've done nothing except my job. Whatever decisions Gabriel makes are his own. She's right, Gabriel said, moving to stand beside her. Helena has never asked me for anything, unlike everyone else in my life. Victoria reached for her son's arm. Gabriel, please, come back to the house. We can discuss this privately, as a family. Gabriel looked at his mother, then at Helena, conflict clear on his face. Helena understood. Despite everything, these were his parents, his family. The ties of blood and history couldn't be easily dismissed. Go, she said softly. Talk to them. Figure out what you really want. Gabriel hesitated, then nodded. This isn't over, he said, his eyes holding a promise. After the Tavares family left, Helena sat in the darkness of her room, the half-packed suitcase still open on her bed. Whatever happened next, she knew nothing would be the same again. Morning came with fog hanging low over the fields. Helena had barely slept, her mind churning with worries and what-ifs. She'd decided to stay, at least until she found another position. Running away wouldn't solve anything. As she approached the chicken coop, she noticed something unusual. Branquinha was outside, pecking contentedly at feed scattered in a strange pattern. Looking closer, Helena realized the feed formed words. Don't leave. She whirled around to find Gabriel standing behind her, still in his suit from the night. Before, though now it was rumpled and his tie was gone, His eyes were red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "I spent all night talking with my family," he said without preamble. "About the farm, about the business, about what I want versus what they expect." Helena held her breath. And then I walked out. Came here at dawn to feed the chickens and wait for you." Gabriel stepped closer. "I told them the truth, Helena. That I'm not interested in boardrooms and business expansions. That I want to run this farm, really run it, not just visit occasionally. That I want to implement sustainable practices and create something meaningful." "What did they say?" Helena asked, hardly daring to hope. Gabriel's laugh was tired but genuine. "My father thinks I've lost my mind. My mother cried about grandchildren who won't have the Tavares advantages. And Antonio—" He shook his head. "Antonio called me a fool who's throwing away a dynasty for a pretty face and some chickens. Are you?" Helena whispered. "Throwing everything away?" "No." Gabriel took her hands in his. "I'm choosing what matters, the land, an honest life, the chance to be seen for who I am, not what I own." His eyes met hers. "You once said everything that lives and feels is a treasure to those who know how to see. You saw me, Helena. Not the Tavares hair, just me." Helena felt tears spill down her cheeks. "What about Sophia, the contract?" "Antonio will handle it. He's always wanted control anyway. Now he'll have it." As for Sophia, Gabriel shrugged. She seemed more relieved than heartbroken, honestly. Being a Tavares wife was a job to her, not a love match. "Your family will never accept me," Helena said, the reality of their situation still clear in her mind. "Maybe not right away," Gabriel admitted. "But they'll have to accept that I've made my choice." He gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "That is, if you'll have me. A failed businessman who talks to blind chickens." Helena's laugh mixed with her tears. "I think Branquinha would miss you if you left." "Just Branquinha." Gabriel smiled, drawing her closer. Helena looked up at him, seeing not the wealthy heir or the rebellious son, but simply the man who had noticed her when she thought she was invisible. "I might miss you too." As the morning sun burned away the fog, Gabriel lowered his lips to hers in a kiss that felt like a beginning. Around them, the chickens clucked and scratched, indifferent to the moment that was changing two lives forever. In the distance, a car engine started, the Tavares family leaving without their youngest son. But Gabriel didn't look back. His future, he'd decided, was right here among the chickens and the woman who had taught him to truly see. "Should we feed the rest of the chickens?" Helena asked when they finally broke apart. Gabriel smiled, keeping one arm around her waist. "I can't think of anything I'd rather do." What neither of them noticed was Antonio Tavares watching from the main house, his expression dark with determination. If his brother thought this fairy tale would have a happy ending, he was sorely mistaken. The Tavares legacy was at stake, and Antonio would do whatever it took to protect it, even if it meant destroying his brother's newfound happiness, and the blind chicken that had started it all. 3 months passed like a dream. Helena and Gabriel settled into a routine that felt both miraculous and ordinary. Each morning, they rose with the sun to tend the chickens together. Gabriel, who had once supervised million-dollar deals in corporate boardrooms, now took genuine pleasure in simple farm tasks, fixing fences, repairing coops, and planning expansions to the vegetable garden. "I never knew dirt under my fingernails could feel so satisfying," he told Helena one evening, as they sat on her small porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Helena smiled, leaning against his shoulder. "My mother used to say honest work leaves honest marks. Your mother was a wise woman." Gabriel kissed the top of her head. "I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you," Helena said softly. "Not because of your name or money, but because you see people for who they really are." They had transformed the farm in small but significant ways. Gabriel had improved the workers' housing, raised wages, and implemented more sustainable farming practices. Helena had expanded the chicken operation, adding a specialized area for rescues like Branquinha, hens that other farms would have culled, but that thrived. Under her care, Mrs. Gomes, initially skeptical of their relationship, had gradually accepted the new reality. Never seen him so happy, she confided to Helena one day as they prepared dinner. Or so useful. But shadows still loomed. The Tavares family had not accepted Gabriel's choices. His father had cut off his access to the family fortune, a gesture that wounded Gabriel's pride more than his finances, as he had his own savings and the farm was already his. His mother called weekly, her conversations inevitably turning to pleas for him to come to his senses. And Antonio was the darkest cloud on their horizon. He had taken control of the Tavares group and by all accounts was thriving in the role. The business papers called him the pragmatic Tavares brother, praising his aggressive business strategies while dismissing Gabriel as the dreamer who traded empire for earth. "Do you regret it?" Helena asked Gabriel one night after reading such an article. "What you gave up?" Gabriel's answer was immediate. "I gave up nothing worth keeping and gained everything worth having." But Helena couldn't shake the feeling that Antonio wasn't finished with them. He had never been the type to accept defeat, according to Gabriel's stories of their childhood. He had visited the farm once, ostensibly to have Gabriel sign some paperwork relinquishing his board position. His cold eyes had swept over the improvements they'd made, lingering on Helena with barely concealed contempt. "Playing farmer suits you, brother," he'd said before leaving. "Enjoy it while it lasts." The warning in his tone had stayed with Helena, long after he'd gone. Now on a bright Thursday morning, Helena was showing a group of local schoolchildren around the chicken coop. Gabriel had suggested opening the farm for educational visits, and the program had quickly become popular with area schools. "This is Branquinha," Helena told the wide-eyed 7-year-olds clustered around her. "She's special because she can't. See, but she gets around just fine using her other senses." "Like how?" asked a little girl with braids. "She feels the vibrations in the ground when someone walks near," Helena explained, gently stroking the white hen's feathers. "And she recognizes my voice and Gabriel's. Animals adapt to challenges in amazing ways." "Just like people," came Gabriel's voice from the doorway. He smiled at the children, then at Helena. "Sorry to interrupt, but you have a phone call in the main house. Mrs. Gomes says it's important." Helena nodded, carefully handing Branquinha to Gabriel. "I'll be right back. Mr. Gabriel will tell you all about how chickens help the environment while I'm gone." As she walked to the main house, Helena couldn't help but feel a flutter of anxiety. She rarely received phone calls, having few friends in the area and no family left. Inside, Mrs. Gomez pointed her to the phone in the kitchen, her expression unreadable. "Hello," Helena said, picking up the receiver. "Miss Martinez." The voice was crisp, professional. "This is Diana Wells from United Agricultural Bank. I'm calling about the Miller property adjacent to the Tavares farm." Helena frowned, in confusion. "I think you want to speak with Gabriel Tavares. I just work here. According to our records, you're listed as the primary contact for the purchase inquiry." The woman paused. "The cash offer of $2 million. Helena's knees weakened, and she gripped the counter for support. "There must be a mistake. I never... The offer was made last week through an agent named Antonio Tavares, who said he was representing you. He provided all your information, social security number, date of birth, even your previous addresses." The room seemed to spin. "I need to call you back," Helena managed to say, hanging up without waiting for a response. She stood in the kitchen, trying to make sense of what she'd just heard. Antonio was using her identity to purchase property. But why? And how had he gotten her personal information? When Gabriel found her still standing there 10 minutes later, her face must have alarmed him. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately at her side. "Who called?" Helena explained what the bank representative had told her, watching Gabriel's expression darken with each word. "This doesn't make sense," he said when she finished. "Why would Antonio use your name to buy the Miller property? It's been for sale for years. If he wanted it for the company, he could have purchased it openly." "She said it was a cash offer," Helena added. $2 million. Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Helena had come to recognize as a sign of deep frustration. "The only reason to use your name would be if he didn't want the purchase traced back to him or the company." "But why?" "I don't know," Gabriel admitted. "But I intend to find out." He reached for the phone. I'm calling him right now. Helena placed her hand over his. Wait, maybe we should think this through first. If he's gone to this much trouble to hide his involvement, confronting him directly might not be the best approach. Gabriel hesitated, then nodded. You're right, but we need to stop this. He's essentially committing identity theft. I'll call the bank back, Helena decided. Tell them I never authorized the purchase and want the offer withdrawn immediately. After making the call and dealing with considerable confusion and concern from the bank, Helena and Gabriel sat at the kitchen table, trying to unravel Antonio's motives. The Miller property borders our farm on the north side, Gabriel said, spreading out a map of the area. It's mostly undeveloped land, a few old buildings, but nothing special. Would it be valuable to the Tavares group? Helena asked. Gabriel shook his head. Not particularly. It's good land, but there are better investment opportunities if he was looking to expand agricultural holdings. Then why? Their conversation was interrupted by the rumble of heavy machinery. They rushed outside to see a procession of construction vehicles turning onto the road that led to the Miller property. What the hell? Gabriel muttered, striding toward his truck. Let's go see what's happening. The scene at the Miller property was one of rapid mobilization, bulldozers, cement trucks, and teams of workers unloading equipment and supplies. Gabriel parked at the entrance where a large sign had just been erected. Future home of Tavares Agricultural Processing Plant Breaking Ground. June 2023. Man in a hard hat approached as they got out of the truck. Sir, ma'am, this is a construction site, not safe for visitors. Gabriel drew himself to his full height. I'm Gabriel Tavares. What's going on here? The foreman's eyes widened slightly. Mr. Tavares, I was told you were aware of the project. He fumbled through papers on his clipboard. It's all approved. Permits, environmental impact studies, everything fast-tracked through the county. He handed Gabriel a document. Construction starts today. We're on a tight deadline. Gabriel scanned the paper, his jaw tightening. These permits were just approved yesterday. Yes, sir. Mr. Antonio Tavares has excellent connections with the county commissioners. The foreman looked uncomfortable. If there's a problem, you should really speak with him. Oh, I intend to, Gabriel said, his voice dangerously quiet. Backy. In the truck, Gabriel slammed his fist against the steering wheel. This is why he used your name for the initial offer. He knew I would have heard about it if the Tavares group was buying property next to our farm. But why build a processing plant here? Helena asked. There must be better locations closer to the main operations. Gabriel started the engine, his expression grim. There are dozens of better locations. He chose this one for one reason only, to destroy our peace. A processing plant means noise, traffic, pollution. He glanced at Helena. It means the end of everything we've built. Helena felt sick. This is about punishing you for leaving the family business, isn't it? It's about control, Gabriel replied, pulling out his cell phone, and Antonio has just gone too far. The call to Antonio went straight to voicemail. Gabriel's message was brief and cold. I know what you're doing. Stop it now, or I'll fight you with everything I have. Days passed with no response from Antonio. The construction at the Miller property continued at a frantic pace. Workers in shifts, floodlights allowing progress through the night. The serene farm that had been Helena and Gabriel's sanctuary was now filled with the constant drone of machinery and the beeping of trucks backing up. Worst of all, the chickens were showing signs of distress. Egg production dropped dramatically. Even Branquinha, normally calm and content, had stopped eating properly. We have to do something, Helena said, watching Gabriel pace their small living room. They had both moved into the workers' quarters. After the construction began, finding the main house too exposed to the noise and disruption. I've tried everything, Gabriel said, frustration evident in every line of his body. Called in every favor, spoken to every official. Antonio has them. All in his pocket. The permits are legal even if they were rushed. The environmental impact studies were done by a firm on the Tavares Group payroll. What about legal action? An injunction? Our lawyer is working on it, but these things take time. Meanwhile, the construction continues. Gabriel sat beside her. taking her hands in his. "Helena, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Antonio is using you to get to me." Helena squeezed his hands. "No, this isn't your fault. Antonio is making his own choices, and they're cruel ones." She paused, gathering courage for what she needed to say next. "But, Gabriel, maybe we should consider whether staying here is worth it." "What do you mean? The farm means everything to you, I know that, but is this particular piece of land worth the fight? We could sell, buy somewhere else, start fresh, away from your family's influence." Gabriel was already shaking his head. "This land has been in the Tavares family for generations. It's the only part of my heritage that I've ever truly loved. And more importantly, if we run now, Antonio wins. He'll know he can bully us into submission whenever he wants." "Then we fight," Helena said, her resolve strengthening at the sight of Gabriel's determination. "Together." The next morning brought unexpected visitors, Gabriel's parents. Helena watched from the chicken coop as their luxury sedan pulled up to the main house. She hadn't seen them since that confrontational night 3 months ago. Gabriel met them on the front porch, his posture tense. Helena couldn't hear their conversation, but the animated gestures told her it wasn't a peaceful family reunion. After several minutes, Gabriel pointed toward the Miller property, and all three got into the sedan and drove in that direction. They returned an hour later. To Helena's surprise, Victoria Tavares asked Mrs. Gomez to prepare lunch for all of them, including Helena. The invitation, delivered by Gabriel with a hint of a smile, was the last thing Helena had expected. Lunch was a strained affair. Victoria made polite but distant conversation about the farm improvements, occasionally glancing at Helena with an expression that wasn't quite approval, but wasn't the open disdain of their first meeting either. Mr. Tavares spoke little, his attention seemingly focused on the food. Finally, as Mrs. Gomes served coffee, Victoria addressed the elephant in the room. "We went to see Antonio's project," she said, her manicured fingers tapping against her cup. "It's rather extensive." Gabriel nodded. "It's designed to be as disruptive as possible." "Yes, we gathered that." Mr. Tavares spoke for the first time. "Completely unnecessary from a business perspective. The Tavares Group already has 3 processing plants better situated for distribution." Helena looked up in surprise. "You don't support the project?" Mr. Tavares's eyes met hers directly. "Miss Martinez, I may not have approved of my son's choices, but that doesn't mean I condone this kind of vindictive behavior. The Tavares name stands for business excellence, not petty revenge. What Antonio is doing reflects poorly on the entire family," Victoria added, her tone suggesting this was the greatest of all possible sins. "And it's affecting our relationships with other businesses in the community. People are talking." Gabriel leaned forward. "And you're here because—" "We've spoken with Antonio," his father replied. "Tried to make him see reason. He refused to listen." "He's changed," Victoria said quietly. "Always ambitious, of course, but now there's something hard about him. He sees your happiness here as a personal affront." Mr. Tavares cleared his throat. "We came to tell you that we've called an emergency board meeting. As majority shareholders, we still have the authority to block this project." Helena felt hope rise for the first time in days. "You would do that?" "We're not doing it for you, Miss Martinez," Victoria said bluntly. "We're doing it for the Tavares' reputation." And, she added with a glance at her son, "because regardless of our disagreements, Gabriel is still our son." Gabriel's expression remained cautious. "Antonio won't take this well." "No," his father agreed, "he won't. Which is why you both should be prepared for whatever comes next." After his parents left, Gabriel pulled Helena into his arms. "I can hardly believe it," he murmured against her hair. "My parents actually doing something helpful. They love you," Helena said. "In their own way." Gabriel pulled back, his expression serious. "They're trying. It's something." He smiled slightly. "My mother actually called you by your name, instead of the chicken girl, Progress." Helena laughed, then sobered. "What do you think Antonio will do when they block the project?" "I don't know," Gabriel admitted. But at least we'll have some breathing room to figure out our next move. They didn't have to wait long to find out. That night, Helena was awakened by the frantic barking of the farm dogs. Gabriel was already pulling on his clothes. "Stay here," he told her, grabbing a flashlight. "Not a chance," Helena replied, quickly dressing. "We face things together, remember?" Outside, the night was lit by a strange orange glow coming from the direction of the chicken coop. As they ran toward it, the horrifying truth became clear. The coop was on fire. "No!" Helena screamed, breaking into a sprint. The fire had already engulfed one side of the wooden structure. Inside, the chickens were making terrified sounds. Gabriel ran to the garden hose, turning it on full force, but it was clearly inadequate for the growing blaze. "Call 911!" he shouted to Mrs. Gomez, who had appeared at the main house door. Helena didn't hesitate. She ran for the coop entrance. But Gabriel caught her arm. "Helena, no, it's too dangerous. The chickens are trapped." She pulled away from him. "I can't let them die." Gabriel looked at the fire, then at her determined face. "We go together. Quick in and out. The fire department is at least 20 minutes away." They wrapped wet towels around their faces and entered the smoke-filled coop. The heat was intense, the air acrid. Helena moved instinctively to where the most vulnerable chickens were kept, including Branquinha. "Here," she called, finding the white hen huddled in a corner. "I've got her." They worked frantically, herding and carrying chickens out to safety. The roof began to creak ominously as the fire weakened its structure. Gabriel grabbed Helena's arm. "That's enough. We need to get out now, just one more." Helena coughed, reaching for a frightened hen trapped behind fallen debris. Gabriel helped her free the bird, then practically dragged her toward the exit as part of the roof collapsed behind them. They emerged into the clean night air, coughing and covered in soot, but alive, and with most of the chickens saved. From the safety of the yard, they watched helplessly as the fire consumed the rest of the coop. By the time the fire department arrived, there was little left to save. The chickens they'd rescued huddled in confused groups around the yard, some injured, all traumatized. As dawn broke, the full extent of the damage became clear. The chicken coop was completely destroyed. 5 chickens hadn't made it out. The rest were homeless and terrified. Helena sat on the ground, cradling Branquinha, who had suffered burns to one wing. Gabriel crouched beside them, his face streaked, with soot and an expression of cold fury in his eyes. "This wasn't an accident," he said quietly. Helena looked up at him. "You think Antonio—" "I know it." Gabriel stood, pulling out his phone. "The board meeting is today. My parents are going to stop his project. This is his answer. If he can't have what he wants, he'll destroy what we care about." Helena stroked Branquinha's singed feathers. "What are we going to do?" Gabriel's eyes met hers, filled with a determination she had never seen before. "First, we take care of the chickens. Then, we end this, once and for all." As the sun rose fully over the farm, casting light on the charred remains of the chicken coop, Helena realized that the peaceful life they had built was in ashes too. The time for retreat was over. Now they would have to fight, not just for their farm, but for justice. And somewhere in a luxury penthouse in the city, Antonio Tavares smiled as he read the text message from his hired man. "It's done." The chicken keeper would soon learn that no one took what belonged to a Tavares and got away with it, not even his own brother. The morning after the fire, Helena sat on the porch steps of their small house, watching Gabriel speak with the fire inspector. Even from a distance, she could read the tension in his shoulders, the controlled anger in his gestures. The inspector nodded, made notes, and finally shook Gabriel's hand before leaving. Gabriel walked slowly back to Helena, his face grim. "Just as we suspected. Not an accident. They found evidence of accelerant. Definitely arson." Helena cradled Branquinha in her lap, gently applying medicine to the hen's burned wing. Will they investigate? They'll go through the motions. Gabriel sat beside her, gently stroking Branquinha's head, but without witnesses or evidence pointing to a specific person. He shrugged. "We know who did it. Proving it is another matter." They had spent the morning setting up temporary housing for the chickens in one of the storage sheds. Mrs. Gomes had helped, her usual efficient manner softened by genuine concern. The rescued chickens were traumatized but alive. A small miracle. In the midst of destruction, what did your parents say? Helena asked. The board meeting was scheduled for that afternoon. My father is furious. Not just about the fire, but about Antonio using such tactics. Gabriel's expression hardened. He may not approve of my choices, but arson crosses a line even he won't tolerate. And the processing plant? The vote should be unanimous to shut it down. Gabriel stood, restless energy radiating from him. But that won't be enough, not anymore. Helena looked up at him. What are you thinking? Before Gabriel could answer, a police car pulled up to the farm. 2 officers approached, their expressions serious. Mr. Gabriel Tavares, one asked. Gabriel nodded. That's me. Sir, we have a warrant for the arrest of Helena Martinez. The officer glanced at Helena, who had gone pale. Are you Miss Martinez? Helena stood slowly, still holding Branquinha. Yes, but there must be some mistake. No mistake, ma'am. The officer pulled out handcuffs. You're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. Gabriel stepped between Helena and the officers. This is ridiculous. What evidence do you have? The second officer held out a document. We have financial records showing Miss Martinez attempted to purchase the Miller property using fraudulent means. We also have evidence of funds being diverted from Tavares Group accounts into an offshore account in her name. That's impossible, Helena exclaimed. She's being framed, Gabriel said firmly. My brother Antonio Tavares is behind this. The officers exchanged glances. Sir, we're just doing our job. Miss Martinez will have the opportunity to defend herself in court. I'm calling our lawyer right now, Gabriel said, pulling out his phone. Helena isn't going anywhere until he arrives. After a tense negotiation, the officers agreed to wait for the lawyer, though they remained on the property, watching Helena closely. Gabriel paced the porch, speaking rapidly into his phone. Helena sat frozen, Branquinha still cradled protectively in her arms. Everything was falling apart. First the fire, now this. Antonio was systematically destroying not just their happiness, but her freedom, her reputation, her future. An hour later, a sleek black car pulled up, and a distinguished older man in an expensive suit emerged. Mr. Patterson, the Tavares family lawyer for over 30 years, had arrived with remarkable speed. He conferred briefly with Gabriel, then approached the officers with the confident air of someone used to being obeyed. After examining the warrant and making several calls, Patterson returned to where Helena and Gabriel waited anxiously. The charges are flimsy at best, he reported, but they're legally sufficient for an arrest. Someone has gone to considerable trouble to create a paper trail that implicates you, Miss Martinez. Antonio, Gabriel said through gritted teeth. Patterson nodded. Most likely. The good news is I've arranged for Miss Martinez to surrender voluntarily tomorrow morning. No handcuffs, no jail tonight. I'll have a bail hearing set for immediately after booking. Thank you, Helena said quietly. After the officers left, with a warning that Helena was not to leave the property, Gabriel pulled her into his arms. I'm so sorry, he whispered against her hair. This is all because of me, because of my family. Helena clung to him, fighting back tears. What happens now? Gabriel pulled back, his eyes filled with determination. Now we fight back, but first we need to get you somewhere safe for the night. I have to surrender in the morning, Helena reminded him, and you will. Gabriel's voice was steady. But tonight I need to speak with Antonio alone, and I don't want you anywhere near him. Gabriel, no. Helena gripped his arms. He's dangerous. The fire, these false charges, who knows what else he's capable of. He's still my brother, Gabriel said, and it's time we settled this, face to face. Despite Helena's protests, the plan was set. Mrs. Gomes would take Helena to stay with her sister in a neighboring town for the night. Meanwhile, Gabriel would confront Antonio at his penthouse in the city. As Helena packed a small overnight bag, Gabriel made one more call to his parents. I need a favor, she heard him say. The most important one I've ever asked of you. Later, as dusk fell, Helena stood with Gabriel beside Mrs. Gomez's car. Branquinha was settled in a small carrier, coming along for the journey. Promise me you'll be careful, Helena said, holding Gabriel's face between her hands. Antonio isn't thinking rationally. Gabriel kissed her softly. I promise. By this time tomorrow, this will all be over. One way or another. I love you, she whispered. It was the first time she had said the words aloud. Gabriel's eyes softened. I love you too. Since that first day in the chicken coop. As Mrs. Gomez drove away, Helena watched Gabriel through the rear window until he disappeared from view. She couldn't shake the feeling that she might never see him again. The drive to the city took Gabriel almost 2 hours, time he spent planning what he would say to his brother. By the time he parked outside Antonio's luxury building, night had fallen completely. The doorman recognized him, and after a brief call upstairs, directed him to the private elevator that led directly to the penthouse. Antonio was waiting in his spacious living room, a glass of scotch in hand, looking out over the city lights. He turned as Gabriel entered, his expression neutral. Gabriel, this is a surprise. His tone suggested it was anything but. Drink? Cut the act, Antonio. Gabriel remained standing near the elevator. I know what you did. Antonio raised an eyebrow. You'll have to be more specific. I've done many things lately. Taking over the family business, expanding our operations, protecting our interests, burning down our chicken coop, framing Helena for crimes she didn't commit. Gabriel's voice was dangerously calm. Those specific, enough for you. Antonio took a slow sip of his scotch. Serious accusations, brother. Do you have proof? I don't need proof, we both know the truth. Gabriel stepped closer. Why, Antonio? Because I chose a different life? Because I fell in love with someone you don't approve of? Because you betrayed the family? Antonio's calm facade cracked. Everything father built, everything I've worked for, you walked away from it all for what? Chickens and some farm girl. Her name is Helena, Gabriel said coldly. And what I chose was happiness over obligation, love over legacy. If that's betrayal in your eyes, so be it. Antonio laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. How poetic. But real life isn't a romance novel, Gabriel. Actions have consequences. Yes, they do, Gabriel agreed, including arson and filing false police reports. Prove it. Antonio's smile was smug. You can't. Just like your precious Helena won't be able to explain how her name ended up on all those financial documents. Such a shame. Fraud charges can carry quite a sentence. Gabriel's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Let Helena go. Drop the charges, stop the processing plant or else. Or else what? Antonio mocked. You'll run to Daddy again? Even he can't undo what's been set in motion. No, Gabriel said quietly, but I can. He pulled a small recorder from his pocket and held it up. I've been recording since I walked in. You just admitted to framing Helena and implied responsibility for the fire. Not directly, but enough to raise serious questions. Antonio's face darkened. You'd betray your own brother, your own blood. You did that first, Gabriel replied, when you decided to destroy innocent people to punish me. Antonio lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for the recorder. Gabriel sidestepped. But Antonio was faster than he looked. They grappled, crashing into an expensive side table that toppled, sending a crystal sculpture shattering across the hardwood floor. Give it to me, Antonio snarled, his carefully constructed sophistication completely gone. It's over, Antonio. Gabriel pushed him back. Even if you destroy this recorder, it doesn't matter. Our entire conversation has been streaming live to our parents and Mr. Patterson. Antonio froze. You're bluffing. Gabriel held up his phone, showing the active call. Am I? From the phone came their father's voice, hard as steel. Antonio. That's enough. The fight seemed to drain out of Antonio all at once. He sank onto his leather sofa, suddenly looking much older than his years. You don't understand what it's been like, he said quietly. Always in your shadow, the responsible. One, the hard worker, but never father's favorite. That's not true, Gabriel said. It is. Antonio looked up, his eyes hollow. You were always the one he bragged about. The charming one. The natural leader. Even when you walked away, he still held out hope you'd return. He laughed bitterly. I did everything right, and it was never enough. Gabriel stood silent, seeing his brother clearly, perhaps for the first time. The jealousy, the resentment, it had been building for years, long before Helena entered their lives. Antonio, came their father's voice again from the phone. Meet us at the house in 1 hour. We'll discuss this as a family, all of us. After ending the call, Gabriel looked at his brother, who sat with his head in his hands. This isn't just about Helena and me, is it? Antonio didn't look up. Go away, Gabriel. You've won. Again. Gabriel hesitated, then turned toward the elevator. Some wounds were too deep for one conversation to heal, but as he stepped into the elevator, he heard Antonio's voice once more. I never meant for anyone to get hurt in the fire. It was just supposed to destroy the coupe. Empty. Gabriel nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and let the elevator doors close between them. The Tavares family meeting lasted until dawn. Gabriel called Helena once to assure her he was safe and that things were being resolved. By morning, decisions had been made. Antonio would step down as CEO of the Tavares Group, temporarily, their father said, though Gabriel suspected it might be permanent. The charges against Helena would be dropped, with the family's considerable influence ensuring no further legal trouble, and the processing plant project would be cancelled immediately. When Gabriel finally arrived at Mrs. Gomes's sister's house, Helena rushed into his arms. I was so worried, she said against his chest. When you didn't come back last night, I'm sorry, Gabriel murmured, holding her tight. It took longer than I expected. But it's over now. You're safe. On the drive back to the farm, Gabriel told Helena everything. Antonio's confession, the family meeting, the agreements reached. So just like that, it's fixed, Helena asked, skepticism clear in her voice. No consequences for what he did. There are consequences, Gabriel assured her. Antonio's lost his position, his power. He'll be under our father's supervision for the foreseeable future. And he's agreed to therapy. And your parents? They're just accepting us now. Gabriel smiled slightly. I wouldn't go that far, but they're trying. My mother actually suggested having you over for dinner next month. A proper dinner, she emphasized, not in a chicken coop. Helena couldn't help but laugh, the tension of the past days finally breaking. I suppose that's progress. When they arrived at the farm, a surprise was waiting. A construction crew was already at work on the burned site of the chicken coop. Mrs. Gomes stood supervising, clipboard in hand as if managing a military operation. What's this? Helena asked, getting out of the car with Branquinha's carrier. Mrs. Gomes approached with an unusual smile. Mr. Tavares, the elder Mr. Tavares, sent them at dawn, said to tell you it's a peace offering. She lowered her voice. And I may have given them some suggestions about improvements for the new co-op. Gabriel looked at the plans one of the workers brought over. This is incredible, twice the size of the old one, with specialized areas for the rescue chickens. Temperature-controlled predator protection. Your father did this, Helena asked, amazed. Gabriel nodded, equally surprised. Apparently so. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. The new chicken coop took shape, a magnificent structure that Helena jokingly called the Chicken Palace. The rescued birds, including Branquinha, whose wing was healing nicely, settled into their upgraded home with visible contentment. One evening, as Gabriel and Helena sat on a newly built bench near the chicken coop, watching the sunset, Gabriel seemed unusually thoughtful. What are you thinking about? Helena asked, resting her head on his shoulder. The future, he replied. Our future. And what does it look like? She asked softly. Gabriel turned to face her. That depends on you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. Helena's breath caught. Gabriel, I was going to plan something elaborate, he said, opening the box to reveal a simple but beautiful ring. But then I realized that our best moments have always been the simplest ones, right here, among the chickens. Tears filled Helena's eyes as Gabriel continued. I don't want to be a Tavares heir or a businessman, or anything else except the man who loves you, the man who sees you. He took her hand. Helena Martinez, will you marry me? Helena looked at the ring, then at Gabriel's face, the face of the man who had changed her life simply by noticing her when she thought she was invisible. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her under the golden sky, with the soft clucking of chickens as their soundtrack. 3 months later, they married in a simple ceremony on the farm. Mrs. Gomes cried openly. Gabriel's parents attended, Victoria in a designer dress that seemed out of place among the rustic decorations, but with a genuine smile for her new daughter-in-law. Antonio was not there. He had left for Europe, part of his healing process, their father explained. After the ceremony, as guests mingled and celebrated, Helena found a moment alone with Branquinha, who wore a tiny white ribbon around her neck for the occasion. "We did it, old girl," she whispered to the blind hen. "We found our place in the world. The most beautiful bride in history," came Gabriel's voice as he joined her. Even Branquinha dressed up for the occasion. Helena smiled up at her new husband. "Did you ever imagine this? When you first saw me sitting in the chicken coop?" Gabriel pulled her close. "I knew you were special from that first moment. I just didn't know how completely you would change my life." He gestured around at the thriving farm. All of this, the sustainable farming, the chicken rescue program, the educational visits, it all started because you taught me to see value in what others overlook. "And you taught me that I was enough," Helena said softly. "Just as I am." From across the yard, Victoria Tavares watched her son with his new wife. Beside her, her husband followed her gaze. "They look happy," he observed. Victoria nodded. "Yes, they do." After a pause, she added, "She's good for him. Different than what I imagined, but good." "Sometimes the most unexpected choices turn out to be the right ones," her husband said, squeezing her hand. At that moment, Gabriel looked over and saw his parents watching. He whispered something to Helena, and they walked over together, hand in hand. "Thank you both for coming," Gabriel said. "It means a lot to us." Victoria hesitated, then reached out to touch Helena's arm. "Welcome to the family, Helena, officially." Helena smiled, recognizing the effort this small gesture represented. "Thank you, Mrs. Tavares." "Victoria," Gabriel's mother corrected her, "we're family now." As the celebration continued around them, Helena and Gabriel slipped away to the new chicken coop. In the peaceful quiet among their feathered friends, Gabriel pulled his wife into his arms. "Happy?" he asked, searching her face. Helena nodded, her heart full to bursting. "Happier than I ever thought possible." "Even though your life is now filled with chickens and in-laws and farm work?" Helena laughed. "Especially because of those things." She touched his face gently. "You once asked me if I had left my dreams in the city. The truth is, I never dreamed big enough. This, you, us, our life together, is better than any dream I could have had." Gabriel kissed her, a kiss full of promise and love, and all the tomorrows stretching before them. Around them, the chickens clucked contentedly, including one special blind hen who had, in her own way, brought two unlikely souls together. Outside, the sun set on the Tavares farm, no longer just a place of land and livestock, but a home built on the most solid foundation of all love that sees beyond appearance, beyond status, beyond expectation. Love that recognizes the treasure in everything that lives and feels. And from her special perch in the chicken coop, Branquinha settled in for the night, somehow knowing that her humans had found in each other what she had found in them: acceptance, care, and a place to belong just as they were. The end.